All
We're
right, we are
live.
live. All right, welcome everybody to Hump Day Hangouts. This is episode number 489. Today is the 27th of March, 2024. And we have got a couple of cool announcements as usual. I like to think that we always have some good announcements. But Bradley's on the road. I'm on the road. Chris might be here. He's probably on the road. But we're still here. We're going to answer your questions here in a few. But gonna check in with Bradley once he gets the tech stuff set up and gets the redirect on. So I'm gonna make a couple of quick admin announcements and just say that if you're checking out the replay, and Chris usually makes this announcement, but go down below, hit subscribe, make sure you enable notifications. Not just only because we want and like subscribers, but also that way you can stay up to date with Hump Day Hangouts. We not only have this as a whole video, but we then take that, chop it up into little pieces. And if you're asking questions ahead of time, especially, this is a great way to get notified when they come out. So speaking of asking questions, if you ask questions ahead of time, you can do that at semanticmastery.com/HD questions. And if nothing else, you can go to semanticmastery.com/HDHO for Hump Day Hangouts. And you can find everything you need there after episodes are over. We always redirect back to a page that has the playlist of all the Hump Day Hangouts, starting with the most recent one. We've got links to free resources. We've got the link to ask questions ahead of time. Everything you need right there. We've even got an AI Bradley there to answer your questions. So go ahead and give that a spin as well. So with that said, Bradley, you good to talk?
I am. I just can't show my video because it'll eat my bandwidth, and I'm on a mobile connection, so it's just. And for whatever reason, the weather turned shitty. I'm in Oklahoma City right now, and it's been cold, and we had snow most of the day today, like rain and snow mix, and it's like the weather's just really eating up my bandwidth for some reason. It's screwing it up, so I can't show my video, and hopefully this Hump Day Hangout will go through okay because it's been really, really, really choppy for the last couple of hours. So.
Gotcha. Well, I wanted to touch on one thing, Bradley. I believe you'd already had, and correct me if I'm wrong, or I may be off by a day, but we had been talking to people about the directory hybrid agency training. And so we'd already had we'd set up the initial onboarding calls with people. But there's still a few spots left. And so with that, actually, I'm going to kind of turn it over to Chris. Chris, because I was just telling people that, we have a few spots left for the directory hybrid agency training. But we wanted to do something special for people who might want to join the mastermind. So can you tell them a little bit about the kind of Easter offer we have for the mastermind?
Sure thing. Hello, everyone. So first of all, the offer that we have is like if you join the quarterly mastermind offer right now, you get like a really good deal on like the mastermind. Second, you basically will get like a kickstart call to actually get the best start within the mastermind ever in your SEO journey here. Then I will also do an audit for one of your properties that we usually charge for as well. And you also get VIP access to the application of DHA. So usually there's like a certain process to go through the whole thing, and not everyone will be able to actually jump directly into that. But yeah, like you basically get like preferential access. Doesn't mean that you actually get access. You still need to qualify and everything. But like all those things would be included right now, especially it's the deal if you join the mastermind.
Nice. Yep. And I'll just add on to that because occasionally, I'd say at least a few times a month, we get an email sent into support or a post in Facebook, and people are asking, hey, do you have any deals coming up on the mastermind, or do you ever offer any deals on the mastermind? No. The answer is no. We don't discount the mastermind. But we did want to do something special. So we're happy to bundle in some bonuses here and offer something, extra special as kind of an Easter holiday kind of fun one. So that's going to be available just for the next few days. We'll be sending something out via email. But if you want to take advantage of that and you're watching this within the first couple of days after the 27th of March, you can go to mastermind.semanticmastery.com and join via the quarterly link, which saves you a bundle instead of paying monthly.
Yeah, and it's actually quite a no-brainer offer. You save more than like 3 times like what you would pay on a monthly. Like with all the added bonuses and stuff, like it's actually absolute crazy no-brainer offer.
Cool. Well, a couple more quick ones. Wanted to say, speaking of bonuses and good stuff, Bradley, you're doing a webinar on It's on April Fool's, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Well, we promise you're not going to have an empty webinar. Bradley's going to actually give you training, but you'll have to trust us on that. And Bradley, what's that all about?
That's right. People are going to show up to the webinar, and at the very end, after an hour, it's April Fool's. It's all bullshit. uh, no, we're going to be talking about how I'm doing press releases in 2024 now, especially the GB websites are gone, because that's how I buffered all press releases for several years, was through the Google Business website in posts, essentially, really more so post than the GB website itself. Since that's gone, it's been retired. Now I changed strategy a bit. We're linking to the Google Map URLs, primarily share URLs, including review URLs, and then also the ID page, at least initially one time, and also Google Sites. If you have a branded Google site that you mirror the structure of your primary website into and all that, then press releases can be good and used for that as well. But anyway, I'm going to go into great detail as to kind of the new updated process that I'm doing for press releases in 2024, and that's going to be on Monday. Anybody can attend, by the way. There's no pitch either. I think Jeremy said he might open up if there's any available slots left. So we got to reach out and confirm that, Adam, by the way, within the next day or two.
Cool.
But find out if he's going to open up the Press Advantage offer or something similar to that was available a week or two ago. He said when I told him I was going to be doing this webinar, that if there was any available slots left, that he would make them available to our audience at that time. But it's not a pitch webinar, guys. It's purely a training webinar. Anybody can attend.
Nice. Well, I got some homework to do during Hump Day Hangouts then. So let's see. The only other thing I wanted to mention was Vetted, vetted.com. You can use the coupon code Semantic for 5% off any service. That's Semantic, just one word. And it doesn't have to be just Bradley services, although he does offer services on there. And we just do this as a friendly, hey, it's a good marketplace. Bradley sells on there. I know Bradley, I would say, Bradley, you're not going to vouch for other people, but they are qualified, vetted, hence the name, services on there, right?
Correct. Yeah. And the new owner, Mushfik, he's actually been removed some people from the platform because he wants to only provide people that are been vetted as hence the name. So that's kind of what he's doing. He doesn't want a bunch of Me Too services on there. He's looking for people that, have some clout or have some have a reputation and good services, etc. And that's part of what he's doing. So I'm just saying that, guys, because there's the opportunity for you to check out other provider services as well. That coupon code will work for any services, not just mine.
Cool. Last thing I'm going to mention, Bradley, we talked to people about this a little while ago, and I think we sent out an email, but I wanted to remind people about the geo links. I'm going to pop the link for that through Semantic Links onto the page, but could you remind people what these are while I grab that link?
Sure. So the geographic links are links with geographic relevance or location relevance. That means the way that we do it, the way that we found we can do it at scale and be able to provide it to clients or other SEOs that need links for their clients, etc., is that we developed a way to hunt down expired domains from businesses that have expired, have gone out of business or let their domain expire for whatever reason. And we analyze the backlink profiles of these expired domains to determine if they have backlinks from other local geographically relevant sources, which can be associations, organizations, institutions, other businesses, etc. I've talked about what constitutes a geographic link or a link with geographic relevance. It is a link that has that Google understands is coming from a source that is in close physical proximity to the business that it's linking to. So it's a geographic signal. It is not necessarily a topical signal. In some cases it can be, but there's usually a lot of the times a link with geographic relevance won't have any topical relevance, but it has location relevance because Google understands that link is coming from another source that is local or in close proximity, physical proximity to that business. So it has geographic relevance. So an example of that would be like a business that joins the Chamber of Commerce and they get into the local Chamber of Commerce member directory and they get a link back to their website. That has an influence on maps ranking, especially a slight influence on organic as well, but it's primarily a maps play. And it's because, again, Google understands that link is, especially one from like a local Chamber of Commerce, is coming from a local organization, association, etc., kind of a whether it's a government organization or a business organization, whatever. It's an organization that's a very typically well-known organization by Google. Some other ways that you can get those too, by the way, and natural organic ways to get geographic links would be through like doing link exchanges with other businesses in the same general area, with vendors, sponsoring little league teams, charities, churches, parks and recs organizations, schools, all of those, and then getting links back from those sources. All of those are going to have significant influence on maps. And so what I recommend is, we found a way to hunt down domains and analyze their backlink profiles to determine if they have relevant backlinks from other local sources. And if so, then we purchase the domain, we populate it with a topic clustered blog that has a bunch of posts on it about whatever the topic of that site was the last time it was published online. So that way the backlinks pointing to it will remain relevant. And then once the site is published and indexed, then we will go in and just choose a random post on the site and insert what I call a block quote, which is just a block quote section that says, we would like to thank, or our blog would like to thank company name for their support. If you need products or services in city, contact company. Name, address, phone number, or map embed, and then a couple of links. Boom, there you go. There's your links. You're basically a citation and links with geographic relevance coming from a local blog that has backlink profile with geographic relevance. So that's kind of what we've done. We've been able to scale that quite a bit. We've got over 1,200 local blogs currently. So we do have that service available. If anybody's interested in that, they can check it out. There's a link in the service description that will take you over to the list of available blogs that we have, is not the blog addresses, but the locations, so that you can sort by location. And what I recommend is always looking for the most specific local blog or geo blog that is optimized to the specific city or town level. If you can't find that, look to the greater county level, because that's usually a little bit broader. And so the way that my team looks for domains is we always start at the city or town level where we're hunting for. If we can't find them, then we'll broaden it up to the greater, broader kind of county area. If we can't find there, we will broaden up sometimes to a regional level. If we can't find a regional level, then in most cases, we just can't find any at that point. In some cases, for states that are small states like Rhode Island or Delaware, we can actually do statewide domains, but for the most part, most states are too big for that to really provide specific geographic relevance. So we try to usually stop at the regional level. So hopefully that's clear. But again, guys, it's just it is a very powerful source of getting results for local when done properly. You don't need a whole lot of them, but what I recommend is, purchasing a couple of them, allowed a little bit of time for Google to discover and index them. Whether they index them or not, I don't even really care. It's just getting them discovered. And then you should see some movement from that. So anyway, that's the service.
Nice. All right. Well, with that said, we've already told people, but make sure subscribe and stay up to date, especially if you are new to Hump Day Hangouts. That's the best way to stay up to date. And then just go to semanticmastery.com/HDHO. You can find the link to ask your questions ahead of time there, find a bunch of resources. So with that said, guys, let's get into the questions.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to grab the screen. And again, guys, I hope my audio is coming through all right, because everything's really choppy right now.
Good, at least to me. So
okay, good. Well,
sounds good here.
Let me grab the screen then, and we'll look at these
get
questions.
Viewers, anybody let us know. I assume if you're having any choppiness, or if anyone can hear Bradley, okay. But yeah, let's just get started.
Right on. Well, there's a couple from last week that I wanted to address that apparently got posted at the end of the webinar, and I didn't see them, so I'm going to address this now. Thomas says, how would you suggest that we look for expired domains with good metrics and good traffic to use for PBNs? So number one, I would encourage you to not look for domains based purely on metrics. Instead, look at relevance factors, which is what I teach at Semantic Mastery. I teach exactly what I do for my link building business at Semantic Links in our mastermind. Like literally, guys, there's no stone unturned. I'm 100% open book about everything that I do in our mastermind. And so what I'm recommending is not to look for metrics, guys. Metrics don't mean much. Now, again, guys, I try to say this on sales calls with prospects for Semantic Links. Nothing is absolute in SEO. There's always outliers. There's always exceptions. If you are able to somehow get a link that is not relevant, but on an incredibly high authority property, then even if it's not relevant, it can still move the needle. But what are the likelihood or the chances of you doing that? Very, very rare. So, and I like to say us commoners need to try to find common link building methods that are duplicatable, that produce results. And so what I'm recommending is you look for relevance. Relevance should be the only metric that really matters. Now, if you're looking at a couple of potential domains or more than one potential domain, and you can determine that all of them are relevant, then you can use third-party metrics like DR or DA or whatever metric it is that tickles your fancy. You can use that as kind of a determining factor as to which domain you want to end up eventually purchasing. Now, to clarify, traffic statistics are certainly a validator. That is one of the most valid kind of signals that I can say is a metric that I would look for if possible. But I found that links with relevance or domains with relevance that then I repurpose to provide links with relevance can work just fine, especially if you can mix in a few other link sources that might provide traffic as well. Because what I found is it's very difficult to find decent domains, at least at scale. If you're doing this very kind of in small batches for like one client here or a couple of clients or something like that, you may be able to take and have the time to devote to hunting down domains that have both relevance and traffic. But it's going to be difficult, and you're going to have to sort through a lot of dirt to find the gold, right? Like that's just the nature of the game. But if you are looking for domains with relevance, but not necessarily traffic, you're going to have a lot more available opportunity to you. And what I have found with my own local SEO agency, because we use semantic links, which is what semantic links proper name, meaning our links specifically, or semantic links, the general term, meaning links with relevance. In any case, semantic links tends to work really well for local businesses. And what I found for my own local SEO agency clients, which are tree contractors, is if I go to like a guest post or outreach link provider where they're selling usually links based upon those third-party metrics that I don't give a damn about, and neither does Google, by the way, but traffic statistics, that is a metric that I think is valid and that I think is important. And so I use QGP, which is quality guest posts. We've got a link for that and a coupon code if anybody's interested in that. We can probably dig that up and post that in there, but I use QGP. They're not fucking cheap, guys. They're very expensive. But $150 for one link or more. But what I'm looking for there are links with traffic statistics. And to answer your question, Thomas, what I tend to do when I'm looking for or building links to one of my own local SEO agency clients, not for white label services. I mean, but I'm just saying what I do for my own agency clients is I do mostly semantic links, which are links with relevance, either topical or geographic relevance. Okay, that's the most important metric. All those other third-party metrics, I don't care about. I don't even look at them. I mean that. Traffic, though, because most of the domains that we purchase and for what I just described, some of them get traffic, some of them don't, but they have relevance, and that's important. So what I do is then for each of my tree service contractor clients, not all of them, but the ones that have the budget that will support it, we'll go in and purchase one or two of those kind of outreach links where traffic is the main metric. I still buy links with relevance, but then I add that additional kind of filtering layer or criteria that states that it has to hit a certain level of traffic. And then what I found is that by mixing in one or two of those per quarter for each client, depending on their budget, and mixing those in alongside a bunch of semantic links, so links with relevance, whether topical or geographic or both, that has a significant impact. And so like semantic links in and of themselves can produce a result, but where I found it's like throwing fuel on the fire is when you add in a couple of links that do have traffic. In the past, when I first started semantic links, we were doing a lot of CTR manipulation through tier 1 links. So any links that we would place for people, we were running a ton of traffic bots and stuff to our tier 1 link sources. But that became once my business grew to a certain point, that became unmanageable. It was unsustainable. It was just too much work and too much. It really was. And so that's why, like I said, and then I found that honestly, if as long as you're mixing in a couple of links that do have other link sources, guys, that have some traffic metrics and statistics and things like that, or if you're doing CTR manipulation, you can run traffic through your own sites, etc. Again, just keep in mind long-term plays is you don't want to have to be running CTR traffic through all this stuff because it can become more work than what I care to do. Hopefully that's clear. So look for relevance first and foremost. I would consider recommend you using Majestic as your backlink analysis tool because of its adjust its topical trust flow metric. It is not perfect. Google doesn't give a damn about that either, just to be clear, but it's a pretty good indication as to what the topical relevance of an external backlink profile is. And so keep in mind, guys, you want to look at when analyzing domains to purchase, the most important thing is the relevance. And I've said that 8 times at least in this answer to this question. But why? Because if a link is not relevant to what it is linking to, Google ignores it. As I mentioned before, there's always outliers, there's always exceptions. An incredibly high authority link from a non-relevant source can still move the needle, but that's rare. So if we're going to be focusing on finding domains, if you buy a domain purely on metrics and then you change the topical category of that site, you've rendered the backlinks pointing to that site irrelevant. So you're not benefiting from those metrics anymore. So and again, by the way, this was just addressed in that most recent Google guidelines update to their guidelines and their spam update. They specifically addressed expired domains, but it specifically stated that it's when you buy a domain and you repurpose it with different content from what it was previously that that's what they consider spam, a spam action. So if you're buying a domain and you are repopulating it with content that's in the same or very closely related category, then the backlinks that are pointing to it would still be relevant. So that's how you retain kind of the value of that domain. So that's why I said, stop looking at metrics. Look at relevance. The only relevance metric that I find that is accurate enough to be trusted for most of this is by looking at the topical trust flow categories, and that is looking at the external backlink profile pointing at that domain. You also have to analyze what was the topical content of the domain previously. You can do that with the WayBackMachine at archive.org. Just look at it and make sure that the content was doesn't have to be the exact same category, but a closely related topical category. Then, as I mentioned before, if you can identify potential domains with relevance and maybe traffic as well, then you can always then go and determine which of those domains you want to actually purchase and build out based upon third-party metrics if those are important to you. If that makes sense. But relevance is the most important thing to be considering there. Again, topical relevance for pushing organic, geographic relevance for pushing maps. Great question. James says, do you have any experience running Facebook ads? From years ago, yes, and I absolutely hated it. Just in case anybody is not aware, I absolutely despise Facebook. I hate Facebook, always have. Never been a fan of it. I used it out of necessity because of our groups for a long, long time. But now that we've moved our Semantic Mastery Mastermind into Circle, I am rarely on Facebook. Very rarely on Facebook. I get messages occasionally from people and I don't see them for 10 to 12 days. And it's not because I'm trying to be rude or a dick. It's just because I can't stand Facebook. It's a complete waste of time, in my opinion, and a cesspool. And I understand that you can use it for business, blah, blah, blah. I get it. I just don't like it. And therefore, I try to stay off of Facebook as much as possible. And I just didn't ever like to do Facebook ads. And from anybody I know that does Facebook ads regularly, I hear it's a full-time job to stay up with the constant and never-ending changes that they make. And so, I have enough of that with SEO. I don't feel like dealing with Facebook either. On that. That makes sense. So I don't really have any experience running any Facebook ads recently, and I really don't have any desire to either. So if so, what do you think about the ideas of running Facebook ads to get people to post reviews on a GBP listings? I don't know. If they're not valid reviews, you could potentially get into trouble with that. For that would be my assumption. If you're talking about like doing remarketing to people that have likely been customers, or maybe you have a customer list and you can add them to a remarketing campaign, or I guess they call it retargeting in Facebook, something like that, then yeah, I think that could certainly be a valid way to get people to go to the review URL, especially if it's just a customer list that's seeing the ads. That's certainly a valid way to do it. Hey guys, listen, anything you can do to increase the review counts on GBPs with real valid reviews, by all means, try it. Like if that seems like that would be relevant to me. I'm not going to test it because I'm not going to run Facebook ads, but it definitely seems viable. If you could create like a retargeting list, whatever they call it in Facebook, with a customer list, known customers that have interacted or transacted business with the company, then that's a valid list to be serving that ad to. What you don't want is to be serving an ad to people, hey, click this and leave us a review. Because then, by the way, if it was to cold traffic, you're probably going to get a bunch of spammed, like shitty negative reviews, just because that's the nature of people and precisely why I hate Facebook. Because again, today I went into Facebook because I had to respond to a Facebook Messenger post, and one of my vendors that I use for partial fulfillment service for semantic links, we communicate via Facebook Messenger. And I went in there today, again, just to reply to a message to him. And I looked at my Facebook news feed, which was a mistake. And next thing you know, I got sucked into a post that was, again, other internet marketers and SEOs that I know that were in some heated discussion or debate and a Facebook post thread about stuff. And there's such a waste of time, in my opinion. I mean, look, I'm not discrediting anybody else that gets value from that. I'm just saying, for me personally, I have no patience or desire to get sucked into these long posts and listening to people bicker about things. Or read about people bickering about things. I just don't have any desire to do that. And that's the point that I'm saying is, no matter what you post on Facebook, it seems like there's always trolls, there's always troublemakers. And so if I'm advertising on Facebook, I'm quite sure that you're going to be getting types of people like that type of response through your ads as well. Again, I'm not trying to discount anybody that uses Facebook for business purposes. That's fine. If it's generating revenue, keep doing what you're doing. I just have no desire to do it. Does that make sense? Leonard says, hey, brother, I found an expired domain and has good trust flow and backlink profile, but the only issue is there's no WayBackMachine snapshots. What do you usually do in this situation? Well, if you can't find any history of it online, then I would say it's probably okay to use. If I can't find any snapshots in the WayBackMachine, or if they're showing like a blank page, or if they, something like that, then as long as I don't see any history of where the page was, indexed that had something that was non-relevant, then I'll still use it, because it just means the domain had probably been purchased. It might have been used for something, but it never got indexed or something, but links were still built to it for some reason. As long as they're relevant, it shouldn't be a problem. What I don't like is if you're looking at the WayBackMachine and you look at snapshots that like where they're blank, 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 but then when it finally get to a point where there is an actual web page that was cached and it was something non-relevant. That's what I always concern yourself about, because what I'm concerned about is what was the last known history of that domain to Google and Google's cache. So another example, another way to put this would be like, if I'm looking at a domain that has a really good backlink profile that are relevant to, let's just say plumbing, for example. Let's just say I needed a domain for a plumber, and I found one and it had backlink profile in the business, construction, and maintenance topical category, or topical trust flow category, which is generally going to be relevant to certainly a plumber and many various other home service contractors. And I looked at the backlink profile and they were relevant. And I looked at the WayBackMachine and I could see that 2 years ago, 3 years, let's say 3 years ago, it was a plumbing site. But then apparently it expired at some point, and some SEO, some spammer picked it up and they used it for an affiliate site. And next thing you know, there's a handful of backlinks, maybe not many, but maybe a handful of backlinks that are pointing to it that say, buy Nike shoes online or something like that. Something that you can usually identify in the anchor text cloud when you're analyzing the potential domain. If that's one of the first things I do, by the way, when I'm analyzing a potential domain, I look at the backlink profile, or the summary and majestic of the domain. So what are the overall topical trust flow categories to the root domain? Based upon looking at the root domain and majestic. And then the next thing I do is click on the anchor text option, which takes you to like an anchor text cloud. And look at the anchor text cloud. The bigger it is, that means the more that anchor text was used. So if you see some non-relevant anchor text, and you're oftentimes going to see some that's non-relevant, but if you see a significant amount of non-relevant anchor text, it means it's likely been spammed at some point. Then when you go to the WayBackMachine, you can confirm that by looking at it and seeing, okay, 3 years ago, it was a plumbing site, and then it went dark for 6 months. And then it was all of a sudden, now there's some new cached pages and it was used for an affiliate site or something completely unrelated. And then it went expired again. I wouldn't recommend using it at that point, because the last history of that domain was not relevant. Although it might still have backlinks pointing to it that would be relevant. I've not really tested with repurposing domains that have a history of being spammed. To see if we can revive them and make them valuable back into the original topical category of which they have backlinks for. That may work. I've just not actually tested with that. So I don't want to advise you to do that. So the point that I'm trying to make is, as long as there's no snapshots showing that it was used for a non-relevant purpose, then I would go ahead and use it. If it's all blank or there's no snapshots at all, then I would, probably go ahead and use it. But then also, likewise, guys, if you find a domain that had been spammed 5 years ago or 2 years, even 2 years ago, whatever, but then it was picked up and used for something relevant and it has relevant links pointing to it. In my opinion, that's still okay to use because the last history of that domain when it was published was relevant, if that's clear. So something that was spammed many years ago, but then had been turned into a relevant site, that can be used. But something that was relevant and then spammed and then expired again, do not use. That's kind of the criteria my team adheres to. All right, hopefully that's clear. Kieran says, how much do Google Maps citations with directions request embedded help with local SEO? I have no idea. So if you're talking about like those big elaborate My Maps with that you see with all the pins, and then there's also driving directions and things like that. I don't know how effective that is anymore because I've not done any specific testing with it in a long time. Those big My Maps that you see with those kind of like concentric rings of pins on like Fiverr and Legit and things like that, you'll see tons of those kind of gigs. Those used to be incredibly effective many, like 5-6 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, back when we first launched RYS Academy and Google Drive Stacks training and stuff. My Maps were like the cheat code. They really were. And you can still do some good stuff with My Maps, but those kind of big concentric ring type of map things, those don't really produce much of an effect anymore, in my opinion. From some of my own testing, when I first started Semantic Links, I tested a lot with those actually. So that was about a little over 2 years ago. And I saw basically no movement from that at all. There's other things that you can do with maps that are more powerful, in my opinion. Doing the driving direction stuff, again, I don't know, because I work almost exclusively with service area businesses, and it didn't really make sense to do that with service area businesses because they're unpublished street addresses. So I've not done a lot of testing with that. My assumption is that, and I would suspect that they're not nearly as valuable as they used to. Because guys, remember we're in the SEO business, right? So we find something that works, or somebody finds something that works, and eventually somebody creates a training product out of it, and they sell that as an information product. And a bunch of other SEOs buy it, and then it gets leaked to the Black Hat forums, and then a bunch of other SEOs use it, even though they didn't buy it. And next thing you know, enough people know about it that Google closes that loophole or reduces any effectiveness of it, if that makes sense. And that's kind of the typical cycle of all methods in SEO. There are foundational things, foundational SEO principles that don't change, but things become less effective typically over time. And so that's why I'm saying, like, this is an older tactic. I don't know that whether it produces any kind of measurable effect right now or not, because I've not tested with it in forever, because I saw a significant waning effect from that kind of stuff several years ago. So I just got away from using it. But you can always certainly test with it, Kieran. I mean, remember that you can buy some of those gigs for very inexpensive. And so why not test it on something? Not a money site. Find a lead gen asset if you have any that you could test it on, or find a competitor that is not performing at all in maps anyways. Just some random business out there. It doesn't even have to be a competitor. Just some random business out there. Buy a gig, apply it, see if it makes any movement whatsoever, right? Again, you can do that, guys. You can test these types of gigs or services on other GBPs that you have no management access to. They're not your client. You don't know them from John or anybody else, if that makes sense. But you can just find a business that's not performing at all in maps, and apply a gig or a service like that and monitor the results. Plug it into a local search grid tracker or something. See if it does any results, if it provides any results. If so, try to duplicate it on another one. If you can duplicate it or replicate that result from that product or service, then you can start to try to test applying it to lead gen assets and or client assets. But always test first, is what I'm saying. And again, like I said, guys, I just don't have any experience with that recently. When it stopped providing a measurable effect a few years ago, I just quit testing with it. Ethan says, hey, Bradley, I just bought an exact match domain via GoDaddy, which seems to have an active rank and rent site on it. Really? How do you buy a domain on GoDaddy with an active site on it? That's interesting. I thought that if it was available in GoDaddy, I'm not saying it can't. I'm just saying I've never seen that. I always thought that if it was available in GoDaddy, it was basically, not hosted or anything. That's interesting. I've never heard of that. The site ranks top 10 for keywords in their niche, where the average client value is 5 to 10K. Wow, that's good. According to the Internet Archive, the site has looked the same for the past 10 years. except for including a different local home service business name and or phone number about 5 years ago. What would you do in my situation? That's a great one. I'd probably, if it's already ranking in the top 10, I think you said, yeah, for keywords in their niche, and it looked like it had remained unchanged for all those years, why not rebuild the site? You know what I mean? Like with the same content, same page structure, everything else. And then you modify it, just restore the site, which you can do from Wayback Archives. It's kind of a pain in the ass, or just, rebuild the site with whatever site builder, page builder, WordPress, whatever it is that you want to use, but then basically try to recreate the site and the pages, etc. And then what I would do is just, again, you can optimize it or brand it for whatever brand you want to use it for. If that's what you were planning on using it for, like a lead gen site or for, whatever, you rebrand it, obviously, but keep the page structure, and the content can be updated, but kind of keep the structure of the site, that kind of stuff. Something like that, guys, when you see it was performing quite well, it just recently expired, it has still active and valid backlinks pointing to it. There's no reason to not pick that up and try to revive that, because you're much more likely to recover previous rankings that way, if that's clear. Something like that, again, it seems like you've done your research, Ethan. So that something like that for me, I would say would be worth the effort of rebuilding. When we first started Semantic Links, we were doing that actually. When we would hunt down domains, we would try to rebuild them with the previous structure and everything else. But if you try to do that from the Wayback Archives, it's a real mess. There's a ton of bloat in those files, guys. So I had my site build team, which is the same site build team I still use today. They're in India. They're great. They're the ones that build all of our rebuilds and stuff like that. Anyway, they were doing the like rebuilds from the Wayback Archives, and then I had them just do some what I call the rebuilds now, which are just single page HTML sites with various and random type of templates and structures to the page, etc. But we would just populate it with content, so it was like basically a one-page site. That's what we do with the rebuilds now. And I found that it was easier for my team, my site build team, to start from scratch than it was to try to rebuild with previous content from archive.org files, etc. And so it became more cost effective and more efficient for my team to deploy sites with new content with HTML. But in a case like this would be something where I would, to try to recover those rankings, etc., because those seem to be valuable. I would probably go ahead and spend the time to rebuild that site. If that makes sense. Okay. We're going to move on. Kurt says, my client sites lost my rankings real faster after I did image alt text optimizations on one page. I did about 7 or so in one sitting. I heard about over optimization. Is this a real thing? Yeah, it can be. If you hammer the same keyword over and over again in alt text, I don't know that you did that, Kurt, but you can over optimize with things like even alt text, guys. In some cases, so that may be it. You say your client lost your rankings real faster after if you did it only on one page, was it just that one page that got hit, or did it hit site wide? Because if it was more than just that one page that got hit, there's probably something else going on. But something that you could do to test that would be to switch it back, de-optimize those alt tags, right? De-optimize them, or completely remove them, save the page, submit it for re-indexing, see what happens. Does it come back? Then you'll know. And then if it does come back, then what you can do is go back in and start adding alt text again, but add more variety, right? So for example, guys, if it's a local client, instead of hammering away at keyword plus city or city plus keyword and the same keyword, but maybe variations of the same keyword, but also always including the city modifier, don't do that. And here's the better way to optimize images, guys. Always start the image alt tag optimization with the brand name. Always. Why? Because when a potential customer of that local company, local business, does a search for keyword plus city, and they find potential providers of that product or service in their local area, one of the things that most searchers do, or a large percentage of them do, is then they will go first identify through generic keyword search query, keyword plus location modifier, maybe it's just a keyword, maybe it's keyword plus near me, etc. But they're going to do a search, and then they find, okay, here's 3 potential or 5 potential companies that provide this product or service. A lot of what they'll do is then go click through and view reviews, or they'll go do a brand search for Joe's Tree Service. Hey, I need tree service. I'm going to look for a tree service, Culpeper, VA. Here's 3 different companies. One of them's Joe's Tree Service. So I'm going to go to Google and search for Joe's Tree Service and see what pops up. Well, then your keyword plus city modifier or keyword plus location modifier, alt text optimized image isn't going to rank for that now, is it? No, but if you start all of your alt tags with the brand name, then that is a hell of a lot more likely that when a potential client, customer, etc., does a brand search, it's going to pop an image carousel, right? So that's a rich media element within the search results that draws the eye. It makes the company look more authoritative because it's got more kind of branding elements, etc., more rich media elements in the search results. You can do this with videos, by the way, but also with images. You get for a brand search. But here's the thing: append search queries, relevant service, product or service terms, keywords to the alt text. So brand name, hyphen, keyword, right? Do that with all images. That way you're constantly creating associations between the brand and the top level products or services and or locations through the alt text, right? It's creating associations between brand plus keyword, brand plus location modifier, etc. But then also when people do a brand search, the images will pop for the brand search, right? And so that's the whole point, guys, is you want to try to take up as much real estate. Branding is incredibly important for local now, guys. Build authority. So you should be trying to and create associations, right? Semantic web's about associations, relevance, corroboration or validation, all of those things, relationships between entities. So what I recommend is trying to create associations in as many places as possible. Alt text or alt tags are one of the places you can do that. So again, guys, I do recommend that. And also remember, guys, another thing, overlay a logo. And I'd like to do a QR code overlay as well onto those images. If you've already got images on sites, I mean, you don't have to do on all of them, guys, but I do recommend image optimization for me is including a logo overlay and a QR code overlay, because now, again, when those images appear in Google's search results, etc., Google reads those images. It knows where the QR code is linked to. It knows that it's branded with a particular logo. All of those things help build authority to the brand, the local entity. Hopefully that's clear. All right. Matthew, did Google take his understanding of language from US Wikipedia and then translate it it translates meanings to other languages, or does this understanding come from local language Wikipedia directly? That's a question I cannot answer. I have no idea, Matthew. I honestly don't know. I stick to the US English. I optimize. I've only worked in English SEO my entire career. So I don't know that, honestly. That's a good question. My guess is it would have been English translated, but I have no idea. I honestly can't answer that. I don't know. Thus, when doing topic research, should I use local Wikipedia in my language, Polish, or can I at least support myself with US Wikipedia's content when local content is limited, which in hairstyling industry is? Yeah, I mean, again, I assume that was all done in English as the primary language, but I don't know that. I don't have an answer to that. I would suspect from what I understand from working with a lot of other SEOs that do foreign language SEO, etc., that English-based SEO works on foreign language sites, not necessarily the other way around. Doing foreign language SEO on an English-based site typically isn't nearly as effective, but doing English type of SEO, meaning you can link to foreign sites with English content, etc., and it typically has a significant effect. And so if that's the case, then my guess is that, you could still use the Wikipedia. My guess is Google doesn't have different algorithms or different databases based upon language. Maybe it does. I don't know. But I would think that English would have been the primary. I could be wrong. That's why I said I don't know the answer to that one, to be honest with you. My guess is you could probably optimize using English Wikipedia entities and as they're translated into Polish, and it would probably be just as effective, but you'd have to test with that to confirm it. Okay. And again, forgive my ignorance in foreign language SEO. I've never worked in any other language other than English. So I can't really help you with that. Alexander says, what browser do you suggest to keep logins separate? I don't anymore. I swear to God, I don't. Unless you're doing a lot of spammy shit with a bunch of different profiles. I don't do that. I swear I've got multiple browser keepers. For my team, my VA team, because we are accessing real client accounts from foreign IPs. because all my VAs are in the Philippines or Africa or India, depending on where they are. We use something like Go Login for my white label team, that because for the white label team that does on-page stuff where we have to have access to clients' accounts. We do that through Go Login. You can look it up. Just go to Google and search for Go Login, multi-browser or something like that. That's what we use. That way we can set it's basically a shared browser between all the team members that are using it. So we assign a US proxy to that. And then all of our team members can log into the same browser through the same, and they can do it simultaneously too, through the same IP. So that's what we do for my white label team. But for all my own stuff, guys, I swear, and I'll just show you, like, I'm not lying. Look, I just use Google Chrome profiles. That's it. I separate everything that I do through Google Chrome profiles. It's just so much easier now. And like, honestly, as long as you're not doing a lot of spammy shit, which I don't, but if you are, then yeah, take more precautions. But personally, I don't. I just do everything with separate Chrome profiles, and that's it. I keep all of my cold email accounts. I've got multiple, lead gen type accounts. Everything is done through Chrome profiles, and that's it. I just got tired of, there's so many different browser keepers. And by the way, like I said, if you're doing a lot of spammy stuff, definitely want to use something like that. I don't, because I don't do a lot of spammy stuff. So hopefully that's clear. I just use Chrome profiles, guys. It's super easy to set up. You just click the main Chrome profile image icon up here, and you click plus add. You log in, you can set sync, and then from now on, anytime I want to switch, it just opens up a new Chrome browser that's already logged in with all my history, cache history, cookies, all that kind of stuff, and it just works. It works just fine for what I do. Next one. Do I really need to think about it when starting creating my first lead gen properties? No, you don't. Honestly, you don't need to think about that at all. In my opinion, you don't have anything to worry about. If you're going to be creating lead gen properties with Google Business Profiles, what I recommend that you do is that you have separate owners, primary owners of the GBPs with different Google accounts. But then you make one Google account as your primary that becomes a manager of those accounts. And I recommend that that's done through a workspace account, so that you make a workspace email, a manager email, add that as a manager email to the GBPs that you would be managing through that workspace account, if that makes sense. But have GBPs owned by separate and unique Gmail profiles, because that's a way that you don't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. But as far as the profiles and everything else, I just do all that in Chrome, just like I just showed you. Super easy. Next, I'm following felling.pro and using internal city pages to rank for my city and on my GBP. When creating my IFTTT or social profiles, I need to create one for each city, right? Yes and no. I do prefer to, like, it depends on the competition level. By the way, I don't do IFTTT networks anymore, guys. I haven't for probably at least 2 years, maybe 3. We do social profiles that are well optimized and interlinked. And we constantly build those out, but I stopped doing the syndication part of it 2 or 3 years ago. So we're actually relaunching Syndication Academy and rebranding it as Brand Expander, because the syndication part of it is not something that I do anymore. So there's no reason. You can do it if you want. Don't get me wrong. It's not harmful. I just don't do it anymore because it's changed. It's not as effective as it used to be. And where I find the value is building branded profiles, assisting with their discoverability, meaning forcing Google to pay attention to them. And then over time, you build massive amount of authority because you're literally informing the knowledge graph, right? You're helping to engineer the knowledge graph about that local brand. And so to get back to your question, if it's a multi-location brand, what you can do is a set of branded network profiles for the main brand itself that is location agnostic. I think that's the appropriate way to say it, which means it's not specific to any location. It's about the brand itself. But then for each individual location, I like to have a brand plus location network. And when I say network, I'm talking about just a branded profile of properties that are well optimized and interlinked, that reference the name, address, phone number. So the NAPW, name, address, phone number, and website information for each location. If that's clear. So to be clear, what I would do is for a branded network only, which would be for the larger brand that's not location specific, I would do like the brand name is the subdomains for the Web2s and things like that, if possible, or a variation thereof. If you are then when you develop the branded profiles or properties for the specific locations, I like to do a variation of the brand name or an abbreviation of the brand name plus a location modifier, one that would be relevant, either a particular city or a county or a region or something like that. So sometimes we will abbreviate the brand name or use an acronym or something else so that the username or blog, Web 2.0, subdomain, etc., isn't super long, because that's spammy in my opinion. But it's about really the brand or using the full brand name and in an abbreviation or something of the location itself, if that makes sense. So for example, I'm in Oklahoma City right now. OKC is the abbreviation for Oklahoma City. That is well known. It's recognized by Google, etc. So if I wanted to have, like, let's just say Benner's Tree Service, for if I had multiple locations in the Oklahoma City area, in suburbs, I might have Benner's Tree Service or Benner's Tree or something like that as the brand name for the Web 2.0 profiles, the subdomains, usernames, etc. But then for a specific location in OKC, I might have, Benner's Tree OKC, if that makes sense, instead of spelling out Oklahoma City. But yeah, I do like to do that because, again, that provides specific location relevance, right? You can build authority to the specific location that way. So I do think that's a good way to do it. Like all as brand city, so I can build it for all my cities and have different properties for all my cities. Yes. I've said this in the past, though, guys. When I was doing IFTTT syndication, a lot of the times I would just do one branded network, and then I would set up basically categories and silos on the branded network properties so that I could have, like, essentially location silos on the branded network properties. So that, if that makes sense. But I don't really recommend that anymore. I mean, you can, but that's a lot of additional work, and it's hard to scale when you manage multiple clients, because that's a lot of additional work to build out those Web 2s further. So what I recommend now is just building social profiles, but they're well optimized, but they don't need a ton of content, a lot of structure, anything like that, a lot of pages, posts, etc. They're just well optimized kind of front page social or Web 2.0 profiles, if that's clear. So we might optimize the front page or the home page or whatever of that Web 2 with name, address, phone number, website, business description, map embed, and then a link out to the other branded and supporting assets that are available at that time. And then that's pretty much the extent of what we do. Okay. All right, moving on. We got two more, and then we can get into comments, and we should be right on time today, guys. Michael says, if I want to buy a GBP from a vendor, how can I check the age of the GBP? Good question. If it's indexed and verified currently, a lot of the times it'll tell you that in the small text, in business for 3+ years or in business for 7+ years, things like that. You can see that usually in the search results for the GBP. Otherwise, I don't know how to tell you how to check the age. I don't know. I don't know about the GBP specifically. You could check the age of the website if it had a website, that it was linked to, by looking at the WayBackMachine archive.org, take a look at the snapshots and see, but that's not going to tell you when it was connected to the GBP that I'm aware of. So I'm not sure. But just be careful when buying GBPs from vendors, guys. I've found that a lot of those just never perform well. I don't know what the last few that I bought haven't performed very well. And it's interesting because when I got the manager access notification from the email because they were transferring ownership of the GBPs that I bought, the name of the GBP in the email was completely different. So I know that the GBP that they sold to me was a GBP that was in a different industry entirely, and somehow they were able to secure it, change the category and the name, and then sell it to me. And so when I asked for them to transfer ownership to me and I got the emails, I thought that the emails that they sent me were for non-related GBPs, that they sent me the login manager request access email, the invitation to be a manager of the GBP for somebody else's order. When it come to find out, it really was my GBP. But so on Google's back end, even though the GBP had been updated to a different category and a different name entirely, and it was published to a public facing side of it. Let me just give you an example, guys. I'll just demonstrate this for you. How about that? Here's an example of one of them that I bought recently, well, somewhat recently. And let's see, let's just say Tree Care HQ Louisville, KY, maybe that's what I have to do. Maybe it got suspended. Anyway, it may have, because that's what I've found is these just typically do not perform well anyway. But I had one that Let's see if we can find it. I'm surprised the brand search didn't make it pop. It may have been suspended, actually. I'll have to check on it. Anyways, Tree Care HQ Louisville was a one that I had bought. And it was, when I got the manager invitation, it was like some nail salon or something. The email said, you know, Tina's Nail Salon is inviting you to be a manager of the GBP. So I replied back, it's like, hey, this is the wrong GBP. Like, please send me the manager access, the right one. No, that was the right one. So it's interesting because even though it was public, on the public facing side, it showed Tree Service and then Tree Care HQ was the brand name. Clearly on the back end, it was a non-related GBP at some point, and it was repurposed for and then sold to me. And what I'm trying to get at with those guys is I've found that no matter what I do with those GBPs, I can't get them to rank. So, or sometimes to even appear for a brand search. So it just goes to show you, I'm not trying to look, if you've got a good source of it, and I know other people have found some that work, fine. I'm just saying my experience with them has been shitty. It's almost not worth it, in my opinion, guys. Just because if you end up buying that, you're spending money on it, then you're going to put time and effort into trying to rank it, trying to get it to perform. And if it never performs, it's a ton of wasted effort. So that's why I've been getting away from all that stuff, guys, and talking about the DHA program. And what my whole process is now is about using organic assets to generate interest from clients in a particular area or from prospects or business owners in a particular area that then you can use to either rent or sell them leads, rent those assets, or just use those as an add-on to sell them to benefit their business if they use your traditional retainer-based SEO services. So that's why I call the DHA the directory hybrid agency model, because the hybrid model of being able to monetize both lead gen assets and doing regular traditional retainer-based SEO work for their brand, right? So you go out and build organic assets that you don't have to worry about verification, you don't have to worry about them being suspended, etc. And then you use those to point to when you're prospecting and pitching your services to business owners for those products and services in that specific area. Say, look, I've already gotten results in your area for the same products and services you provide in your local area. I can see that you have a Google Business Profile that's not performing. Here's my proof that I can get results. If we marry these together, we can get you results and generate leads for your business. Is that something you're interested in? Because now you've got assets that you own and control that you're using to help promote their GBP that is a verifiable, valid business that can be re-verified or reinstated if needed. If you buy a GBP and it gets suspended, you're shit out of luck, and you've lost all the work and the energy and money, resources, etc., that you've invested into it. Is that a good business model? No. If you have a source for GBPs that can be like a never-ending supply to replace them, sure, maybe that's a valid business model, or one that could be repeated or duplicated. But I also don't like to spend money and attention and energy, resources on projects that can be taken out, that can be literally wiped out in a moment's notice. Because again, I don't like rework. I hate that shit. I prefer to do like long-term strategies, right? Something that's going to, I put the effort in and it's going to have a return on investment long-term. And so again, that's why I don't recommend buying spam GBPs, guys, just because it's very likely that they're not going to last long or they're never going to perform well. And then you will have wasted a lot of time and resources trying to get them to perform. When if you had put that same kind of energy into just building organic assets that in lower competition areas that you can rank fairly quickly and spend your energy and resources instead of on trying to rank a GBP that is likely never going to perform well, spend your energy and attention on prospecting and selling SEO services to business owners with real valid GBPs, because you've pointed to assets that you've produced that are performing well in organic search in their own local area. Right? If you spend the same amount of time and energy on prospecting and selling that you do on trying to rank a spam GBP, you're likely going to generate a lot more revenue, if that's clear. Right? And that's a business model that is sustainable because you can re-verify or reinstate those GBPs if needed because they're real valid businesses. But if you don't do anything spammy, well, I'm not going to say that. Google can suspend shit for no reason, arbitrarily. I've seen it happen. So anyway, hopefully that's clear. I'm just trying to encourage you guys to consider what you're doing and what you're spending your time and money on in this business, so that you're not spinning your wheels, right? Like a dog chasing its tail. You're constantly trying to get results, and as soon as you start to get results, you're screwed. Right? More longer term strategy, guys. Think far into the future if possible. Brian, you had mentioned in past videos that you were using Inlinks software. Is that being used in your agency, and how does it work? Does it work well? SOPs. Also, is website entity mapping with SameAs schema on the web page still important for improved rankings? Okay, so first question, is that being used by agency? Yeah, I use Inlinks for home pages and organization pages, or excuse me, where I would insert organizational and or corporation schema. I used to do that manually. Now I'm using Jesper's schemawriter.ai. That's great for local business and organization schemas. And so that's what I would now apply for on the homepage if it's a multi-location, or in location landing pages, it's always local business schema with the appropriate subtype, or a combination of both, which is what Schema Writer does. For all other pages on the site, I just used Inlinks injected schema, which is the JavaScript code that you add to the HTML header. Then I can select which pages I want Inlinks to inject schema on, and that is web page or FAQ schema, if that's clear. And that, but it also has knows about and mentions and all that kind of stuff. And so I use that for all the rest of the pages, because the only ones that I do kind of manual, semi-manual schema for is location landing pages and home pages. Everything else is done automatically through Inlinks. And yes, I have to optimize the schema in Inlinks, but it's much easier there. It's much more efficient there. Is this being used by your agency? Yes, I use that for my local client, my own, not my white label services, but my own local SEO agency clients, yes, and my own lead gen projects. Also, is website entity mapping with SameAs schema on the web page still important for improved rankings? Well, I don't know about entity mapping. I'm not sure what that is specifically, but SameAs schema is referencing branded assets for the brand, for that specific brand or specific location, if it's a multi-location brand. SameAs is supposed to be referencing branded and supporting assets. I usually stick to just mainly branded assets and, you know, maybe business directory listings, etc. But things somewhere where there's a citation with or without a link, that means a published mention with or without a link of the company name. That's what the same as is. It kind of reinforces or corroborates, hey, this is that brand also in these places, here and here and here, if that makes sense. Okay. But according to Whitespark, schema for local SEO is dead. So you could probably ignore everything. No, that was me being sarcastic. Alex says, how do you do affiliate while Google fucked all affiliate niche blogs? I don't do affiliate, Alex. I do local SEO. So I can't answer that question. Wrong venue for that, Alex. Appreciate the question, buddy, but I can't answer that. I don't do affiliate. I do local. Great questions today, guys. Any comments or questions that I need to address? Does anybody see any? Okay, I'll read through them. Let's see, Zion, what we are here. Okay, David, sorry. What's up, David? Long time, buddy. Target Pest Control. Hey guys, Bradley, thanks for the chat this morning. Made the competitor analysis order. Looking forward to your thoughts and growing the business. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. That was a good call this morning. I think we're going to do an audit or something. I don't remember, but I did 3 sales calls today, so forgive me. 3 sales calls, 2 support calls, a DHA application call, a local Fury partner call, and now Hump Day Hangouts. I've been on Zoom since 7 a.m. this morning, and that is not a joke. I've had like less than 90 minutes of non-Zoom time this entire fucking day. But it is what it is. I do all the sales, so there you go. Good to see you guys. Google My Maps are extremely effective. Okay, sweet. Google. David, I appreciate that. I don't use them anymore just because I don't build them. I know you're quite proficient with Staxio, and I'm assuming you're doing them with those or some variation thereof. Pretty cool to see that they're still effective. 10 to 11 keywords are moving in the maps packs. Okay, I'm still testing another thing I've discovered. Awesome, David. Do you have a service for that other than, or is it just part of your Drive Stack service? Because if you have a service for that is effective, and I trust your judgment, David, for sure, I'm happy to promote that for you on this in this venue. I'm happy to test it myself too. So if you have a service specifically for that, or if that's just part of the overall Drive Stack gig. David's a good guy, guys, just so you all know. I know he's on Vetted and I think Legit, a couple other places. So he's got some good gigs. Go check out David Morgan's gigs, guys. I fully endorse him. I know he's a good guy. So check it out. Let's see. David says, well, I thought I was the only one doing Google profiles this way, but now I submit the crown to you, Bradley. Cecilia, Hannah, let's see. Okay, yeah, I haven't seen Richard in a while. Is it just me or are people looking for the best ways to slight Google? Yes, no, that's normal. Blair, what's up, Blair? I'll see you next week, man. I'll be there. I'm on my way. Brian, safe driving to Scottsdale. Brad, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm driving to Albuquerque tomorrow, and then I'll be driving to Scottsdale on Sunday. I'm building for Bedded as we speak. Awesome, David. Let me know when it's done, man. Ping me next week, and we'll drop your link in chat and everything. You might have to ping me privately or via email or somewhere other venue, because for whatever reason I think YouTube restricts links unless it's from us. But I'm happy to promote your service in chat. So, all right, guys. Thanks everybody for staying around. I appreciate you staying on for a couple extra minutes, guys. We appreciate you. We'll see some of you. Our mastermind webinar is supposed to be tomorrow, but I'm going to be traveling, so I pushed it to Friday. If anybody's curious, also check out that offer that we're doing for Easter weekend, which is the masterminds offer that Chris promoted earlier. There's a lot of additional bonuses for that, and it's a great bargain, guys. I encourage you to check it out. Check us out for the next 3 months. See y'all later.